Today's video is based on a true story, or is it a true story, or is it inspired by a true story? What am I talking about? It's this idea of dramatisations of real events leading to defamation proceedings. I should have called this dramatisations and defamation, shouldn't I? Pretend I did. I talked previously about that baby reindeer thing, because that's obviously, she's issued proceedings now, and if I remember I'll link to my previous video on that. But there's another interesting case, and it's all to do with Richard III. I won't do the obvious, because as a loyal Yorkist, I of course think he is the legit King of England. But what happened? Well, there was, you remember all this where, they found his body in the car park? There was a TV movie about it. And the basic plot of the TV movie was that there was some lass who went to see a Richard III, performs a Richard III, the Shakespeare play. She got really interested in Richard III, and she became obsessed, I think that's her own word, obsessed with the idea that he might be buried somewhere in the precincts of an old church. And she went wandering around, and she thought, this car park is where the church is. I bet he's buried here. Now, she was another person who thought he was the legit king, so she wanted to find his bones, have him reinterred with the royal coat of arms to prove his status. However, the film portrays the narrative thusly, and like I say, I'm just quoting the film here, I'm not suggesting this is what really happened. But within the film, it shows her as this sort of slightly loopy, obsessed amateur, and she tries to get funding, and she approaches the university, and they say, well, no, we can't do it, we can't do funding. But she eventually gets funding, and she uses that funding. She pays for somebody to sort of like, an archaeologist to dig around. She ignores a lot of their suggestions as to where to dig, and she intuitively thinks, dig here, I think he's buried here. And lo and behold, he is. But within the film, though, they show the idea that then the university, or one particular person from the university, had muscled in and then taken all the credit. So he sued, and he sued for suggesting that the film, first of all, suggested he unfairly took all the credit for her hard work, and also that the portrayal of him in the movie, TV film, showed him as being misogynistic and sexist for talking down to this lady. So he issued proceedings against her, and it's gone for what we call a meanings hearing. I mean, I've explained about this before, but I'll just do it again in case for new viewers. The meaning hearing is where you say, well, what actually, is the defamation? What's the meaning of it? Because you've got to show that it has a meaning that would lower your reputation in the minds of right-minded people. I mean, sometimes people put it in terms of it would cause people to shun and avoid you. Also, you have to show that it's caused serious harm. But what were the meanings put forward? Well, the defendant claimed that, well, no, the meaning is we've just shown it here that, he was a little bit patronising and he did muscle in, but that's just a matter of opinion. But the claimant, he said, no, this shows that I have bullied this person, taken credit for work that isn't mine, and that's ruined my academic reputation. So what did the judge say? The judge actually said, yeah, he said, I do find that this film implies that that's exactly what happened, and that is a statement of fact, and it is defamatory at common law. That's not to say that they've established it caused serious harm or a loss or anything, but just the fact that it was an allegation of fact. With regards to the suggestions that there was misogyny and sexism, he said, well, some people will probably get that idea, but that's just an opinion, because for an opinion you have to show that it's based on facts that were either true or you believe were true at the time, and it's an opinion that a reasonable person could hold. Not that everybody would hold it, but just that it's an opinion a reasonable person could hold. And they said, well, there was enough factual stuff in the drama about how she was effectively, shuffled out of her discovery, and the university did claim the credit, that, and she was patronised and talked down to. They said, well, some people might just say that's just because she was an amateur, because within the film, some guys do talk down to her, but so do some women. But again, some guys are quite supportive of her. So they said that's just opinion. But this allegation of fact. And it's interesting because the court emphasised this whole thing of it's what would the reasonable, hypothetical, not too naive, not too prone to scandal and gossip viewer think of it. And especially they said, bearing in mind, it's a visual medium. So although there was a transcript, they said, we're not going to rely too much on the transcript because it's what would somebody just sitting down and watching it once, what would they think? So the judge did that. The judge just sat down and watched the film once and just said, right, I'm not going to rewind or anything. I'm not going to check anything. I'm just going to, watch it as any normal person would, have a cup of tea, have some biscuits, don't really pay too much attention to it. So that was the test. So what's likely to happen now? Sometimes after meaning hearings, where a meaning is found to be defamatory and you're not, claiming it's true or substantially true, that's usually the end of it, and then people go off and try to settle things. This one, though, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, don't get me wrong, people always try to settle stuff, but it wouldn't surprise me if this went to trial and they said, actually, that meaning is substantially true. We might not have got everything right, but the bits we got wrong won't overall change things. Generally speaking, the bits we got right, somebody could legitimately decide, actually, yes, you have proved your allegation that they did bump you out is substantially true. So, that'll be very interesting to see what happens next. So there you go. I'll monitor this and just see what happens. But it's very interesting now because especially with like people being very lazy, and there seems to be a whole new sort of onslaught of based on a true story things coming out. I think we're going to get a lot more of these. So it'll be very interesting. I think people who do these sorts of films will actually look at this judgment, especially if it goes to trial, and that will inform them as to how they tweak things. I mean, you're always a lot better saying, inspired by real events or something, because the judge did say, people watching this will understand that this is a drama and you have to make it exciting. And he said what they were trying to do was basically make it very polarised, very binary, and it was a saints and sinners thing. So, she was the goodie, he was the baddie, because people like a narrative, whereas real life is a lot more nuanced. But yeah, so there you go. Oops, sorry, I'm stood on a riverbank. I'll just adjust that. God knows what that's pointing at now. I can sort of see myself down there on a little monitor. I'll move there so you can see the river. Anyway, yes, as always, hope you found that vaguely useful, vaguely interesting, vaguely accurate. Where am I today? I'm actually at Malpass. Somebody in the comments reminded me that there's a really good pub, the Heron. So I went there to grab a coffee with oat milk, but they actually didn't have any oat milk. So I've come down to their little cafe thing where they actually do have some oat milk. But yeah, so there you go. So this is the confluence of a few rivers. That's the Truro River, that's Carrick Roads. That is, does that go to a restaurant, Goat Creek? No, I'm trying to think where that goes to. I used to know the name of that. But anyway, it's very nice up there. This is somewhere I walk a lot. But there you go. Did I do the please remember to like and subscribe? Yeah, probably. Well, if I did, please consider doing so.